Vampire Survivors is very similar to House of Leaves. It appears to be a size you recognize and accept on the outside, but somehow once you're inside, you have trouble finding where the hallway ends. Loose analogies intended primarily to introduce more people to House of Leaves aside, today I intend to explain why Vampire Survivors is so compelling. But why should you take my word for it over, say, literally anybody else? You shouldn't. I am by no means an expert game designer nor critic, and I haven't even made a YouTube video that doesn't revolve around rocket cars revolving around a soccer ball in the practice mode of the game in like a decade. But that alone should clue you in on just how passionate I am about a game as elegantly designed as Vampire Survivors. Also, if you haven't played Vampire Survivors yet, you should know that a ton of the fun is derived through discovering just how far the game opens up and how it does so via your choices and accomplishments in the game. As my friends and I were playing it, every few moments we'd look over at each other's screen and we were like, whoa, you can do that? I don't want to take that experience away from you if that's something you think you'd enjoy. Go play the game first. It's worth it. You can like the video and subscribe to the channel and ring the bell of awakening and save the video to the watch later playlist and all that jazz and come back when you're done, but go play the game first. But you know, if you're one of those cynical weirdos like myself who sometimes needs to know all of the spoilers to be convinced that a piece of media is worth your time and you get value out of just experiencing the journey to those spoilers, like you watch an entire ending explained video to decide if you're going to then watch the horror movie it's about. If you're that type of broken person, you can stay. And I know we're swimming in disclaimers right now, but as a final disclaimer before jumping into the content, if this video is not being displayed on your second monitor while you play a game like Vampire Survivors on your main screen, or it's on your phone and you've put it under your pillow and you put your head on your pillow and you're about to go to sleep and you're listening to some stuff because you want to learn about some stuff, you want to enjoy some stuff, you also want to sleep to, it's 2022, you got to be efficient. If that's not how you're experiencing this content, you're experiencing this content the wrong way. You actually don't even need to watch this. Let me say this another way. If for any reason you happen to glance over to your second monitor and an upgrade or a character or a piece of subject matter that I'm talking about appears on the screen as I'm talking about it, and you have a little thought to yourself along the lines of, I see what he means. Well, that was an accident. You might think to yourself, I know Plexicraft. I saw him make a Minecraft house before the economy fell apart. I get him. I bet he's joking. Maybe there'll be an Easter egg. No, there will not be any Easter eggs. If I knew how to make this into a podcast, that's what it would be. Now that your expectations are sufficiently lowered enough to make it through this quote-unquote video, or you're part of the demographic that alt-tabbed back to their game the second they pressed play, let's begin. Vampire Survivors is what I would call a roguelite single-stick shooter, or bullet heaven. And I don't know how late to the party I am on this, guys, but, let's make bullet heaven happen. That's a cool name. That should be its own genre. # bullet heaven. The goal of the game is to survive for as long as possible, while an increasing amount of increasingly powerful enemies flood onto your screen. To do this, you must defeat the enemies and pick up the experience gems that they drop, so you can gain levels. Each level you gain grants you a choice between a handful of seemingly random attacks or passive abilities. If you choose well, you may become powerful enough to win the arms race. Your character automatically attacks enemies close to you at a given interval. You can move the character around to avoid getting hit by enemies and to pick up those delicious experience gems, but you don't really control which enemies to attack. Think of it like a tower defense game, but the tower, it's on wheels and you get to drive the tower. And the tower just got done watching My Dress Up Darling, so it's feeling really inspired and it's cosplaying as all the characters from Castlevania. Or perhaps you've had the experience of playing Halo Combat Evolved with your girlfriend who maybe doesn't game as much as you do. It's kind of like when you hop in the driver's seat of the Warthog and they hop on the Gatling gun, and you're driving them around and they're just blasting at everything they see. You can't decide what they shoot at really, but you can kind of drive in circles around the stuff you want dead, to give them the right idea. Really, what I'm trying to say is Vampire Survivors is a game where you don't even need a girlfriend because you can play it with one hand. What the game really gets right is the variety of power spikes you as a player obtain, not just in a given run when your selected upgrades are laying waste to your enemies and you get that familiar smug feeling of, yeah, I did do that. That was me. I made that happen. But you also, you feel your account getting stronger as well. This is a roguelite after all, so even when you don't make it as far as you would like in a run, you may have gained enough gold coins to buy a permanent passive upgrade or a new character to try out. You may have even unlocked a new upgrade that'll appear in the item pool or the upgrade pool as you level up next time, or you might have a new map to explore just by completing one of the trackable achievements. You can use gold that you find in each run to also increase the modifiers on your account's passive board, like your attack power or health regen. The price increases per tier, so it encourages you to spread your gold around or to diversify your investment. That is, until you have enough gold to refund all your passives and buy duplicate for an eye-watering 5,000 gold. What's so great about duplicate, you might ask? Well, it adds one more projectile to every projectile-based weapon that you pick up, and nearly every weapon upgrade in Vampire Survivors is projectile-based. The only character you have at the start is Link Belmont. He has a whip, and that's about it. But the other characters you can unlock and buy with gold come with cool passive abilities and different starting weapons. One of the earliest characters you can unlock is actually the biggest power spike in the game relative to your progress at the time when you can unlock him. His name's Gennaro, and he's essentially a 600 gold duplicate that starts with the wrong weapon. Does it suck to kite with a knife weapon? It does. That is until you hit level 2 and get any other weapon upgrade and use that to steamroll your way through the early game. I'll never forget the first time I leveled up Gennaro. Axe. Yeah, wow, I can have 2 of these. Holy water. I can have 2 of these? Red magic wand. I can have 2 of these? Blue magic wand. Oh, okay. That's what that does. King's Book. I can have 2 of these? Once you understand the way of Gennaro, it feels so good. You feel like you broke the game, and yet you haven't even scratched the surface because the hallway keeps going and leads to a staircase. Let's talk about the enemies in the game. There are 3 types that stand out to me. There's regular enemies, swarms, and bosses. There's also like that explodey guy in the library level, but there's more. but these are the three that are worth talking about. Regular enemies come in the form of skeletons, zombies, and other Halloween stuff. Well, besides vampires. I don't think there's even one vampire in the game. I mean, I haven't read up on any of the lore. Like, my boy Gennaro could be a vampire for all I know, but... Wait, are there any outdoor maps that occur during the daytime? Are we the vampires? Surviving? Are we the vampires? Even the panda. So these regular enemies, they just kind of hobble their way towards you. And they're pretty easy to deal with. You can kite around them and try to dodge and weave if you don't have a good way of killing them before you get too close. But the swarms, that's where things get pretty interesting. If you think about it, they initially seem like a big bunch of regular enemies, which, yeah, I guess they are, but their behavior is what makes them interesting. They zoom across the screen, and then they're just spicing up all the quieter moments and making the intense claustrophobic situations even worse. Your reaction to them is primarily influenced by whether you have garlic or not. If you don't have garlic, you need to get out of the way. They will hunt you down and swarm you to death themselves, or they'll just knock a whole bunch of enemies into you. If you do have garlic, well, now you need to be chasing these swarms to absorb each and every one of them, slurping up all their EXP gems that they will carry off the screen, never to be seen from again if you do not get them all. And yeah, you need all this bonus XP because you chose garlic, which is good early game, but very short-sighted of you. You can't duplicate garlic. What are you thinking? Bosses are actually more like regular enemies than swarms are. They're bigger than regular enemies, and they force you to move because they have so much HP that there's usually no way to kill them before they get to you. The most noticeable thing about these guys is that they drop a treasure chest when you kill them. Treasure chests contain a random amount of gold and a combination of up to 5 weapon or passive upgrades. It's usually just 1, but when you get 3 or 5, when you really, really need it, that feels so good. It's compelling. Outside of the treasure chests, there's actually a few items you can pick up off the ground during your runs that do some pretty interesting things. To find these items, you'll usually need to destroy the candles and other light fixtures that you find randomly throughout the map. Think of candles like they're, just smaller, sadder treasure chests. You won't get any upgrades or cool songs out of the candles, but they do drop gold. They also drop things like vacuums. Vacuums are my favorite because when you pick one up, it sucks in all of the EXP gems that you haven't been able to pick up yet, and you can gain multiple levels at once. If you haven't cleaned the room in a while, you can get a lot of value out of a good vacuum. There's also the crucifix that just destroys all the enemies in sight, which can buy you a few precious seconds, but that's about it. There's this weird dragon breath item that shoots a super powerful flamethrower out in the direction that you're facing. It's kind of cool, but it's really just a crucifix that lasts longer. Then there's the freeze item. Do not pick this up. It's a trap. It always seems to trick you into thinking the enemies will stay frozen longer than they will. It's like that scene in the first Silent Hill movie where all the nurses are standing still and Harriet Mason, or whatever she's supposed to be, has to get past them. And they all start coming back to life at the worst possible moment. Oh, and by the way, that first Silent Hill movie is way better than it has any right to be. It came out in an era where every video game adaptation was just Uwe Boll doing to video games what David Cage does to movies. Or Paul W.S. Anderson taking the amazing intellectual property and using it as a window dressing for some sort of Matrix fan fiction where his wife is Neo and all the competent and interesting characters you love from the game just kind of stand around waiting for store brand Neo to save them. Like, back then, that's all we had. No Arcane, no cyberpunk anime, just straight up garbage and the Silent Hill movie. Well, the only thing I cannot forgive about that movie is they have a woman disappear into Silent Hill whose husband happens to be played by Sean Bean, the spitting image of James Sutherland. And the ending of the movie doesn't conclude with him receiving a letter from his wife asking him to meet her at Silent Hill. And then they just skip to Silent Hill 3. You can also find floor chicken. It's kind of like wall chicken in Symphony of the Night, but you find it in an odd place, you consume it, and you get health back. Some of the most intense moments in the game occur when you're low on health and you're bustling down through candles, tripping over gold and vacuums and picking up the dragon's breath and using it to carve a path towards hopefully another candle on the horizon, praying that it contains the chicken you seek. It's exhilarating. But let's talk about strategy. Remember a while back when I mentioned that sometimes you might want to focus on progress in a single run, and other times you'll want to focus on unlocking new things? Other roguelites have an issue where you need to commit to the type of run you're going to have. Are you going to farm up enough resources to make your account stronger, or is this going to be the run where you beat the game? Vampire Survivors does a great job at sidestepping this issue. It allows you to focus and choose your goal to each run, but doesn't make you feel like you're missing out on progress elsewhere. This is because almost despite the variety of characters, levels, modes, builds, and achievements to unlock, every type of progression in Vampire Survivors abstractly progresses other types. I think we need to get into some examples. Like, maybe you set out with the goal of getting as far as possible in a given run. Well, to do that, you'll be picking up chests to get upgrades out of them, and those same chests will boost your gold. You'll also discover new upgrades you can make use of. They look strong, so you figure you should use it this run. You'll level it up, so you can progress further in the arms race of the run, and doing so will net you achievements, which will unlock more upgrades that will be added to the upgrade pool that you can choose from in later runs. Whether you reach your intended goal or not, you tend to come out of each run with a ton of progress in a bunch of different directions. In Vampire Survivors, you're able to focus on a specific plan while still progressing other paths, and just knowing that not only gives you a sense of progress, but also allows you to change your plan on the fly if new opportunities arise, all while limiting your fear of missing out. Like, there's one caveat here, and it could be said that weighing the trade-offs and committing to the type of run is part of the fun, and the consequences of not doing that right is, like, adds to the stay. I get it. Like, Vampire Survivors just seems to tread this line really expertly. It allows some additional payoff for planning out a run, but it rarely feels like you need to farm to get to the fun part of the game, no matter which path you decide to focus on. That's what makes the design so elegant and so compelling. From here on out, I'll be referring to the way that you spend your gold to progress your account as the macro strategy, and I will refer to almost all of the decisions you make during an individual run as the micro strategy. Could I have gotten away with just using the terms strategy and tactics instead of making up my own terminology? Maybe. Part of the micro-strategy in Vampire Survivors is attempting to control which upgrades you're presented with when you level up. If you can narrow down the upgrades you want, you can put together a combination of upgrades that have synergy. A friend asked me to explain what synergy was the other day, so I'll give you the same example that I gave him. Synergy is 1 plus 1 equals 3. He didn't understand that example, so I gave him another. Think of having one piece of chocolate and one scoop of peanut butter. On its own, if you were to double that amount of chocolate, doing so would likely double your enjoyment of it, and the same could be said if you were to do the same with that amount of peanut butter on its own. But if you combine one piece of chocolate with one scoop of peanut butter, well, if you've ever tasted both of them together, you know where I'm going with this. 1 plus 1 equals 3, right? And by the way, if you're going to be pedantic in the comments and be like, I'm allergic to peanut butter, or chocolate gives me night terrors, like, that's literally your own issue. You know almost everybody else is picking up what I'm putting down. It's a great example. It's actually two examples that work even better together than they would on their own. So now that we know that Vampire Survivor's micro-strategy boils down to putting together as many Reese's peanut butter cups as possible, we can talk about how we do that by manipulating the upgrade pool. There's actually quite a few ways to do so. The macro strategy of the passive board that you can spend your goal on eventually allows you to buy options to reroll, banish, or skip upgrades. Rerolling your upgrades before you choose one will throw away all the upgrades you can choose from and present you with the same amount of new upgrades. So if you don't see anything you need, or you're really fishing for a specific upgrade, you can use one of your precious rerolls when you level up to try to get what you want. Banishing allows you to prevent one specific upgrade from showing up again in the run. It also uses up your action during a level up, so you don't even get to choose from the remaining upgrades though. Banish has some uses way late into the endgame or once you're done with the macro strategy portion of the game, but as you're progressing, you really have to hate an upgrade if you're going to banish it. And skips. There's also skips, but I don't know what they do. To the best of my knowledge, they just kind of skip your level up, and the game is a little too easy to force me to understand and make use of skips, and that's not a flex. The game just, lets you get strong in so many ways. I didn't use the skips. Let's just wait for a Noah Caldwell Gervais retrospective on this. He's a thorough dude. He'll let us know what the skips do. If you think about it, those three actions allow you to have a decent amount, those 2.5 actions allow you to have a decent amount of control over how to build your upgrades out. But what if I told you that you don't even need to use any of them to manipulate the upgrade pool? What if I told you that you can increase your chances of getting the upgrades you want just by being proactive about which upgrades you choose? The first thing you need to know is that the game wants to help you if you let it. The other first thing you need to know is that you can carry 6 weapon upgrades and 6 passive upgrades. Weapon upgrades are all unique attacks. Passive upgrades support your attack upgrades by making them bigger, stronger, last longer, occur more often, double your pleasure. You get the picture. Another first thing you need to know is that once you choose an upgrade, that upgrade will be locked to that run's upgrade pool. What this means is that you will have a higher chance of seeing that upgrade than any other upgrade when you level up again. This allows you to increase the potency of that chosen upgrade until it reaches its max level, which is usually level 8. This also means that once you're carrying 6 weapon upgrades, you will no longer be offered any other weapon upgrade outside of the 6 when you level up. The same goes for passive upgrades. The last thing you should know is that every passive upgrade has a specific weapon upgrade that happens to be their special little buddy. If you have a max level weapon and a specific passive upgrade that it's buddies with, the next treasure chest you open will contain an evolution of the weapon that almost always makes it better. Ponkle, are you trolling us with a cross, or what's going on with the cross? Maybe that's what we use the skip for. So why am I mentioning this in the upgrade manipulation portion of the video? Because once you choose a passive upgrade, you lock its buddy to the upgrade pool of that run as well. The same goes for choosing a weapon upgrade that's buddies with a passive upgrade. The game wants you to evolve weapons. It wants to help you if you let it. Let's do some examples. So let's say we want that passive upgrade duplicate, but duplicate is pretty rare and has a low chance of showing up. What you can instead fish for is its weapon upgrade buddy, Blue Magic Wand, which is much more common. Once you pick up Blue Magic Wand, duplicate is locked to your upgrade pool, so it should show up more frequently and you're guaranteed to get it if you level up high enough. Yeah, check that elegant game balance out right there. The worst weapon upgrade is buddies with the best passive upgrade. Pretty cool, I like it. Pretty compelling. The second last thing you need to know is that your character's starting weapon is locked to the upgrade pool of any run that you take them on. This means that if a character starts with a weapon upgrade that has a passive upgrade buddy, its passive upgrade buddy will also be locked to the run's upgrade pool. That's right, you get the fun and variety of the Skinner box, but also have some influence on what's in the box. Can you now see how Vampire Survivors is consistently putting a compelling amount of control in your hands? It's not just that the song that plays when you find a chest gets you hyped for whatever's inside it. It's not just that you can feel a steady growth of power throughout every facet of the game. It's not just that you can feel the moment when you get the right upgrade and the game goes from having you dodge enemies to chasing them down or like just standing there as they crash into all of your weapon effects. You make long-term, overarching decisions via the macro strategy of the passive board and character purchases. You make medium-term decisions in what achievements you want to unlock via character selection before each run starts. And you make impactful and exciting moment-to-moment decisions during each run. From choosing the right passives to knowing when you need to scramble for some candlesticks to get a floor chicken, or waiting until the last possible moment to pick up a vacuum. Vampire Survivors is longing to reward you infinitely, almost like an idle game. But unlike most of those types of games, Vampire Survivors goes through great lengths to convince you that you've earned it every time. If that isn't compelling to you, maybe I saved you $5. Thanks for listening, everyone.